Oh, yeah. I would just want to pay the buses with the watching stuff.
Yes. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Good to go. So we'll call the regular council meeting in the town of Grand Bay, Westfield on Monday, March 22nd to order. Item 2, record of attendance. Let the record reflect full council is in attendance. Item 3, please. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions.
I would like to make a motion, we approve it as presented with removal of 15.3, Town of Grand Bay Westfield report and consolidated financial statements as of December 31st, 2020 by Curry and Betts.
Seconded.
Thank you. On the question, the item had to be removed because it wasn't, they had a software problem and they couldn't get it to us on time. So on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Item 4, please. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there any? There being none, we're going to move to item 5. Public hearings. None. Item 6. Particularly 6.1. Parks and Recreation Master Plan, RC Strategies, Mike Roma and Megan Carey, presenters.
Hi, Mike and Megan.
Good evening.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Glad you could join us. I think our recreation director's here too, somewhere. Mr. Clark, there he is.
Yeah.
Okay, away we go. You're on, Mr. Roma and Megan Carey.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask Megan to share her screen with you. We have a brief presentation to share with you. Yeah, thanks for letting us come before you and tell you a little bit about the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan process that we are about to embark on. So Megan, I'm just wondering, does everybody see her screen or is it kind of chopped up a little bit there?
We can see your screen quite well, your slides.
Oh, okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, well, let's jump right into it then. So the first thing that we wanted to do was introduce RC Strategies. So the next slide allows us to do that. So we are Parks and Recreation. Okay, for some reason, it's not working on mine.
You can't see mine? You can't see the slides?
No, I can't. But council can see it, is that right?
Just the cover page.
See the cover page. Slide 1.
Okay, so if you get to the next slide, Megan, can you try that?
Just a second here. I'm just going to go out of the share and just go back into it.
We
Perfect.
can see you very well now, Megan.
We're all smiling. We're all smiling, working our way through this. It's not like we've been doing it for a year or nothing. So anyways, go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, I'm just trying to bring it up.
Okay, perfect.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Parks and Recreation is what we do. There's where we are.
That's what we do. We don't do online presentations apparently, but we do Parks and Recreation. So, and actually we do a lot of online presentations too. So sorry about that, your worship, members of council, but just wanted to tell you a little bit about RC Strategies. So we are one of only a few firms in Canada that specializes in recreation and parks planning. And we're very passionate about that. We have a team of anywhere between 10 and 15 people at any given time that are all working towards a mission that's up on the screen here. And I think the gist of it is that not only do we work for our clients, and you are one of our clients, obviously, and we're going to help you make some informed decisions about the future, but we're also very invested in making sure that the parks and recreation sector continues to push forward and get what we feel is the respect maybe and the credence that it deserves, because they are very important services that we truly believe add to quality of life and create a whole bunch of benefit in any community in Canada. So we're recreation and parks cheerleaders, and one of the things that we're going to make sure that we do when we're in your community and when we're providing reports back to you is that we'll continually talk about those benefits and talk about the justification for why these are very valuable services and why they deserve public investment. The next slide is just a quick image that depicts our team. And you can see at the center of that is actually your public and the variety of stakeholders that we're going to deal with in the community along the way. So we've already had a meeting with the steering committee, which does involve some of you on council, involves other members of the community, involves some of your admin. And we're also going to engage beyond that committee with the public to get their input and insight, and also specific stakeholder groups to do the same. So Megan and I on the call here today are the project managers from the consulting team side, and then we have a few others on our team that are going to support, whether it be in research, engagement, facilitation, graphic design. It sort of rounds out our approach and strengthens our team to deliver you the product that you want and that we think you want anyways, and that hopefully you will be satisfied with, and the one that we want to give you. The next slide talks about the process that we're going to go through, and there's 4 phases of work that we're going to undertake, and the detail behind this is found in our proposal. We didn't want to bore you with all of the tasks and so on attached to each one of these things, but just wanted to explain that there is 4 phases of work. The first 2 phases are really learning about the community. So we learn about what exists there in terms of assets, in terms of programs. We also look at strategic planning that you have in place. We look at what happens in the broader region and area, and we also bring into play, national, provincial information or initiatives that we think are relevant from a Parks and Rec perspective. Phase 2 is about public engagement, which I'm going to detail out on the next slide. And then once we learn about the current state of parks and recreation, we start to think strategically about what to do about that current state. And that's phase 3. And we'll engage the steering committee at that point in time and community members to help us depict that future state or that desired future state. And then we'll develop a draft plan, have it reviewed internally and externally, and ultimately we'll be able to finalize that and present it back to council for acceptance in the summertime. And hopefully somewhere along the way, we get a chance to come and visit. But as you know, we might be stuck with some of these online meetings for the next little while anyways. So the next slide.
Can I just interject here to say, that you'll be meeting with a different group in phase 3 and 4 than you are now?
Well, I didn't want to jump to any conclusions because I'm not 100% sure of everybody's election intentions. But yeah, we have been made aware of that. And actually, John told us that early on. And we do have a plan to be part of I think a small part anyways, of the orientation of the new council in May.
That's absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So they'll get the same presentation, or maybe some of you will get the same presentation at that point in time, but we'll also possibly have some information to share. And again, we want to make sure that, especially with new councillors coming on, that they hear these same messages, that we believe in, the value that Parks and Rec has in the community, and we'll tell them what we can at that point and bring them along for the ride to the end of the process for sure. So in terms of engagement in the community, this is important for council to know, because you'll start to see things happening in the community, even though they might not physically be happening, they'll be happening virtually, and some things will be happening physically as well. So we intend to formally launch the project with some communications, messaging, and so on, as the town's new website is unveiled. And we're also going to use that website, a page on that website, to house a online survey. And that'll be a survey that your residents will be told about. They'll get a postcard in the mail, and on that postcard, it'll have a unique code. And with that unique code, they'll be able to go online and put their code in and fill out the survey for us. And we'll also provide a hard copy version of it if some of your residents would rather do a hard copy, but we're not going to go through the effort of printing all of the surveys and mailing them out. So the reason why there's a code there, and residents will need that code whether they do it online or they do it in a hard copy format, is it allows us to say that the results are going to be statistically reliable because we're controlling the amount of times really somebody can fill out a survey, and we're doing that on a random basis.
So I would anticipate having to do a hard copy version, Mike, from my perspective, because I think there are a number. Today, you have so many seniors living in every community, and they're active seniors. And many of them don't necessarily engage in their computer. So, but we will certainly want them to participate in this because, look, we're an age-friendly community. We're trying to focus on our seniors as well as our families. And so we would just want to make sure we can collect input from as broad an audience as possible.
100% agree with you. And, our goal is to get as much input as possible. So we are even flexible in the sense, like I know we have a timeline that you saw in the previous image and so on, and we're going to work towards that timeline. But we are flexible to even revisit some of these things. If we put the cards out and we don't get a good enough response, we'd be open to looking at other ways to collect that information. Because you're exactly right. We want to hear from not only seniors that might not be online, but there's also other facets of the community that might be more attuned to doing a hard copy version, or might not even get the postcards. Like they might miss it in their mail, or and so on. So we do have a few checkpoints along the way, and the steering committee and especially John and Gary are gonna help us make sure that we're getting as appropriate input as possible. And we're more than open to trying different things if some of these don't work. But I can say, oh, go ahead.
I just said appreciate the flexibility.
You bet. Yeah. And I can say that like we do these things all the time. We haven't done one in your community, obviously, and that's going to be, our response rates are going to be unique there. But I can say that we've done them in big and small municipalities since COVID hit and before, and we use the same methodology, and it tends to be fairly successful, especially when we supplement with the hard copy version. But we're going to do our best anyways. Couple other things. So there's a community group survey that'll be sent out to all the organized groups in the region, really in the area. Gary's going to help us identify those. That'll be an online version as well. And then we're going to have some interviews and meetings with stakeholders. And this is to get input, and it's also to build kind of buy-in into the process. When we identify certain maybe groups to engage with, or even stakeholders that maybe don't fit into a category to receive a survey, but are still very important to talk to, like school divisions, business community, that kind of thing. Those first four are how we're going to learn about the community. And then the last one on the slide there is public review. And once we have draft material put together, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen between now and then, including some oversight from council. But once it's drafted at a point where we're comfortable taking it back out to the public, part of our process is to close the loop with the public and let them know where their input went and give them an idea as to what to expect in this plan once council accepts it. And some of the stuff that I went through there is governed by our experience or influenced by our experience working in other communities and doing this for quite a few years. But the other things I just wanted to mention on this is there are some kind of bodies out there that help guide doing community consultation. And there's two logos on the slide there. One is IAP2, International Association for Public Participation. The other one is ARECI. And both of those just provide some, I guess, conscience for us when we're out there doing engagement in your community, and also give us kind of an ethical balance when we're talking to stakeholders, so we're respecting their privacy as we're doing that. So I warned you about this, and it's going to start right now, but the next slide talks about the benefits of parks and recreation. And there are many benefits, lots of research out there that explains the benefits. This image here shows 8 different categories of benefits: economic impact, health and wellness, and so on. But the point I want to make here is that those benefits are both direct and indirect. So direct benefits are the ones that, say, I would get if I went to a facility and participated, became more healthy. Sometimes I pay for that, pay user fees for that. Sometimes I don't, but I'm getting all the benefit myself. The indirect benefits is what's accrued in the community beyond that. And that is what helps to sell this as a public service to maybe people that don't think it's a justified investment, public investment. Those indirect benefits are things like improved economic impact in a community, lower social justice costs, lower healthcare costs from people participating, more connected communities, and so on. And the quote that I really like to use here, and it's from my one of the others at our firm came up with it, is that those indirect benefits are benefits that you can't escape. So even if you didn't want to accrue those or feel those benefits, you couldn't get away from them because you're part of the community and it makes the community a better place. It's not just about going in and using facilities and maybe being healthier or sweating or whatnot. So that's the soapbox that I'm going to get on and get off right away in this first meeting. And the next slide actually just opens it up for any questions that you'd have.
So council, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Roma?
No, I'm just looking forward to the process and seeing the results. I think it's very big. It's the next step.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would like to thank Mike actually that the teams in Grand Bay Westville for a number of years have been very supportive of actually parks and recreation initiatives. We've invested a lot of money in things that you see here, but more importantly, things such as trails, walking trails, backwoods trails, splash pads, bikes, baseball, rinks, everything. And it's, we understand the value to help for that. The issue is that the benefit to a lower cost of health doesn't benefit a municipal government that benefits a provincial government.
Yeah.
So long as they share some of their savings, that would be wonderful.
Understood. One thing I didn't mention.
Policing's another one. Policing really is another one, an engaged community that is community participants.
Yeah, no, understood. One thing I didn't mention is I'm the current chair of the Canadian Parks and Rec Association, and our whole advocacy pitch is trying to get resources from some of these other places that, or I guess other sectors, if you will, that get benefit from rec and parks in communities, but that don't have any responsibility to pay for that. But I'm not going to promise mayor and council anything in that regard, but I can guarantee that we're constantly fighting that fight for the parks and rec sector.
Boy, we appreciate that. Thanks, Mike. Questions? Anybody for RC Strategies? We're glad to have you on board, Mike. It's nice that you took the time to introduce yourselves to us. As Councillor Evans said, we're looking forward to the outcome, and some of us, I'm sure, will be engaged to participate. So, and I know Councillor Snodgrass is on your team here too. So, just glad to have you on board.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Your Worship, and members of council. And I'd be remiss if I didn't throw this in that Megan is from Cape Breton, so I know that's not New Brunswick, but she's from the area, and I have ties to the area. My uncle lives in Rothsay and actually was the architect of record on your existing ice arena. So I'm looking forward to getting there.
Blair Roma, that's right. I worked on that committee then, so I know Blair. I knew Blair. That's right.
So funny story, and I know this is a formal meeting, so I'll leave it at this. But Blair's son, Michael Roma, has the same name as me, and he's my first cousin. And we're about 6 months apart. So there you go.
Well, lovely to meet you, Mike.
Right on.
We'll look forward to the various phases of your work.
Sounds good. We'll see you all again soon.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we could have a motion to receive and file. I know you don't have any hard copy. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Thank you, Councillor Day. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Item 6.2, we have Sergeant Rogers with us. Margaret Rogers with us. Now, do we have a podium? Where does Julie need to be? So she's safe and we're safe.
One of us is here, and then the audience can see you.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yes, because they're viewing us on YouTube.
Watch
Come
out
on up.
Oh, over here.
there.
Right over in front of the,
You're gonna be a star, Joel. Come on up.
not my first time.
Perfect.
Can I sit?
If you want, yeah.
Absolutely.
How are things?
Wonderful, thank you.
Good, let's see everybody.
Council, you have before you the statistical data of the most recent RCMP report for February. Joel, do you want to begin, or would you like to begin with questions? Or do you want to highlight any?
So a couple of things, just to update everybody. So our APP is being worked on. So that will be initiatives from the community that will be included in that you sign moving forward for the fiscal year.
ATP.
The APP.
Oh.
Yeah.
APP, so you'll have to provide the audience.
So it's,
The acronym.
I don't know what it is.
Annual.
Performance plan.
It's the annual performance plan, and there was a survey, it was sent to me, council, electronically. I filled it out representing the top 3 priorities council has endorsed.
Yes, so those will be discussed and included, and then we'll be looking for signature on approval once that's done. So that's coming for new fiscal. We did send out the quarterly report for RC9. Did you get a chance, anybody get a chance to look at that?
I haven't seen that, the Regional Service Commission, I haven't seen that. Who do you send that to?
It was sent to you,
How did you send it?
email, you responded.
Did I forward it anywhere else, Billy? What is it?
So that, Rob Show would have sent it. So it's the quarterly report that we get for the district.
Well, somebody sent me something about RSC9.
I think we did that last month.
You did it last month?
Yes, there we
Yeah,
go.
because I usually, if you send it something, hard to see it go straight.
Okay, perfect.
So what they did was ask me though, the RSC9, there was a request that I did respond to that wanted to know, if we were getting presentations at Regional Service Commission level.
Yes, you did, John, I remember that.
And I explained to them that we don't, that we get them individually here at the municipality because most of the participants at RSC9 are not RCMP patrol communities.
Correct, because we're dealing with Quiscam, Ross, St.
That's right.
St. Martin's. and
3
then
different,
us.
that's right, there's 3 different policing agencies in RSC9.
So as long as you guys are getting the reports, if you have questions about that, feel free to reach in.
Thanks.
We charged 2 people for driving on the road with ATVs over the last 2 weeks.
Yes. How did you catch them?
They just nonchalantly went into Chilton's and we got video surveillance and were able to identify them, so. Yes.
I'm getting complaints about ATVs being on trails.
On the trails.
walking trails.
Okay, yes, and you sent me that,
I sent that too.
Yeah.
And 2 up on, they're having some trouble, I heard some concerns, Jewel, from, some of the seniors at the seniors. home.
Oh, down,
Yeah, because they access the trails right beside there, so at all hours of the night.
Yeah.
Well, the power line may be early.
The power, that's right, that's how they're getting to the night. That's exactly, that's exactly right.
yeah, and it's the same up by my house.
That's right,
That's right, exactly.
on the top of
But
it.
yes, no, the walking trail to me, that's a huge safety concern for people
Yes.
walking. We did put up steps and they took them down, or you guys did, they took them down. Or did they get put back up? Okay. So I have huge concerns with people walking on the trail, walking their dogs, being out with their families, and ATVs. I mean, that's, it's gonna be
Well, more
disaster.
importantly, I don't know how they're, because it was built so as not to accommodate, I mean, you've got 90-degree turns on a couple of the bridges in there so that it couldn't accommodate ATVs, so how they get through there?
Well,
Yes.
It's not easy, it's one traffic.
Is it too?
So it's definitely something that we're aware of. But if we do get information, if you guys have information, I mean, please feel free to share it.
thing I'm hearing is the fact that River Valley Drive is the new NASCAR circuit.
Speeding.
So, I'm not planning to take up car racing yet, but, you might want to,
It's one of our top 3 concerns, traffic control.
Absolutely.
You mean, speed limits, cars, we're talking ATVs again.
pardon me?
You're talking cars?
Yeah. So they're going up and down the drive.
The board's commissioner determines where that going, has plans for it, but yes, you could be collecting data, but I mean, if you're the police, that's a major collector. I mean, it's pretty easy, I suspect,
Yeah.
if some presence
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's noted.
Thank you.
I'll get everybody to focus on that here, especially with the warmer weather, more people are traveling. Now that we're in yellow, there's obviously more vehicles on the road, so. John, you did ask a question about the boat, and I never did respond. I did get clarification that we don't have access to a boat. And we would need to use local fire department, the Joint Rescue Center, which is free, which we have used in the past for rescue. And ground search and rescue would also be an option.
What did you say? You don't
The
have
boat,
Why don't you have
Boats,
access to the
we
Carolyn
don't.
Skid?
we don't have a boat that we're able to use.
You've used it here before?
We have,
Is the boat now gone, or?
It's an ambulance.
it's in Hampton. I didn't get really a straight answer, to be honest. It came from our commanding officer. He's saying for liability issues for the time being, we're not allowed to use it.
So you're not using it in Hampton either?
No.
I see, you have a boat.
Nobody's allowed to use it right now.
Oh, I see.
So that may change. I don't know if we need to get a new boat or if there's issues with, I'm not quite sure. I didn't.
Yeah, so
get a full.
it's just important for you to have the information that we have a letter on file, of course, here,
Yes,
that indicates the RCMP are responsible for those activities on the water, in the St. John River. And it came from Sergeant
Langwood?
no, on the Kingston.
That was a
Whichever's going on there.
can I get a copy of it?
Absolutely.
So then that will give me some ammo to go back and say.
Yeah, we'll share it. Yeah, please, we'll share it.
So in the meantime, I mean, I know that doesn't give us the option to do enforcement in the summertime, and that may change come the better weather, but as far as rescue, we have lots of options there for us. Local fire, JRCC, and
You don't have local fire, because we don't have our fire department's not equipped.
they don't have both.
No, you guys are both.
That's what you're supposed to have.
That's why
I better get my voting license.
No, but in fairness, Worship, I would say that as a municipality, we gotta get on. Every other, if you watch that, the rescue they had there in the river, going across the ATVs, that was all local fire departments. Out on the water.
In ice today. Use up ice.
Yeah, that's not in the water, down in the river, yeah. We really gotta look at that.
Well, our guys are all sick chain for ice rescue, I know that, and it's,
They just don't have, I know they've got the suits and stuff, because they went out on the ice there a couple weeks ago.
that's right, they're all banned for ice rescue.
Yes. Okay, so, leave this with me, if you send me the letter.
I'll make sure you get a copy
Yeah,
of the letter.
and we can maybe discuss it next month and see kind of where we're at. Update on our missing girl.
Thank you.
She's still missing.
Our search and rescue are coming back, Julie, is that you were telling me they were gonna come back as the mouth began.
Yeah, so we're actually moving forward. Obviously I can't get into too much detail, but we're advancing our investigation, and we're hoping that some of this information that we're waiting for will actually give us a location so that we can bring ground search and rescue and the dog, potentially the helicopter back, which we've already done. And as the snow is melting, it'll hopefully give us an area that we can focus our efforts on.
Put things off phone or something.
Yeah, her phone's been turned off since the fifth, so we were doing things all along, it's still turned off.
Yeah.
So we're hopefully, I'm hoping this week that we'll have the information that we're looking for and can focus. But still, I encourage everybody to still share the posts.
Absolutely.
Whatever news release was posted last on social media is the update that we have. that should be seen going across River Island, going to Station.
Yes, my sister was the last person to see it. We are saying so.
Oh, really?
She didn't know who she was.
Okay. So I encourage everybody to continue to share those posts. Obviously, I'm dealing with the family on a regular basis, so they certainly appreciated you reaching out as well. So that one has been very consuming for all of my members, including myself. It's been a major focus for us. It's a big file, so.
Yeah.
I think that's everything that I wanted to discuss. Any questions regarding staff?
I have one. You have to tell me, what is mischief from a Trojan horse? What is that?
Data. Data, mischief data, computer.
Oh, yes.
Horses, worms, and viruses, I'm got there, they got her.
So it would be well, I knew it wasn't a Trojan horse, but I didn't, what is that? To data? What is
Well, they
that?
send you get something in the mail, you get something on your computer, and it's a Trojan horse. It's buried inside it. It's an enemy.
You think it's one attachment, you look that up, and
It's basically a virus that attacks your.
Instead of
You just say virus, but there has a Trojan horse and worms.
It's almost that
Trojan horse.
Pardon me?
You sort of put them in a soft spot.
There we go.
Yeah, that's,
It's part of Greek mythology, so back
Oh, I know
in
what
the
a
days,
Trojan horse
when
is.
they had their computers back in the time of the ancient Greeks.
Yes, they did.
Mythology, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So does anybody have any further questions for Sergeant Marsh? With
What is
respect
the
to,
flight from peace officer, the second line down?
take off.
that's how
yeah,
you're
so
in.
that just means that we've tried to pull them over, and that would have been the one, that we ended up charging. So that was the incident from last week. Constable McKinnon had parked himself where the caboose used to be, and the ATV driver was in Chilton's, came out, he put his lights on, he actually got out of the car and waved him down to say, hey, like, you can't be driving on the road, and he took right off.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's, you're fleeing the police to prevent yourself from either being ticketed or arrested. So, that individual has been charged.
thank you, Julie. The other thing I wanted to just ask a little bit tonight, because you hear so much of it on the media today, are we seeing an increase in domestic violence calls or anything like that that could be associated back to COVID and the fact that we're all locked in our houses?
No, so there's nothing to correlate between calls for service in relation to those types of calls and.
Isn't that wonderful news? That's wonderful news, because not all communities are experiencing that. So it's not just domestic violence, childhood, I mean, there's child
Well,
abuse and everything
and there really
associated
would
with this.
be no way to kind of say, yes, it's because of COVID, right? Like, we haven't seen an increase of.
Well, that's, yes, I know you couldn't do that. That's why I wanted to know if there was any increase, but you're not seeing any.
No.
Oh, good news. We'll take it. Any other questions, anyone, for Sergeant Rogers Marsh? The Trojan horse is waiting outside.
Many more.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, thank you.
So nice to see you. Council, can I have a
Motion to
motion, please?
receive and file.
Thank you. Second by Evans, thank you. On the question, all those in favor? Contrary minded, your motion is carried. And your item is 6.3.
Hook and paddle fishing derby, Brian Carlson presented.
You want me to
Your
let
worship,
them
while they're getting set up, I need to,
He's here.
in? They're here.
Screen.
Sorry, you still.
They're not. But go ahead. Are you okay, Beth? Yeah. Okay.
He just see if she's.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
So I know you're with Hook and Paddle, and you are?
Hey, yeah, my name is Brian Cothra, and I'm the organizer for the Hook and Paddle Fishing Series.
Thank you, Brian. I see we have your information. In fact, council has had your information for the weekend. So we've had a chance to go over it. So please, the presentation and the floor is yours.
Yeah, I don't want to take up much of your time here, so I'll keep it short. But I've been running a kayak fishing series essentially all over New Brunswick for the last 5 years. It's a nonprofit organization that I work for, but kayak fishing has taken off like crazy. And in New Brunswick, we have a lot of different species of fish to catch. And obviously, Grand Bay Westfield, there's no shortage of fish in the Nerepis and St. John River. So it's been a frequent stop in our series. We work a lot with Jeremy Klein in Outdoors New Brunswick. Obviously, he moves a lot of kayaks all over New Brunswick, but he's one of our sponsors and promotes Grand Bay Westfield all the time. So, this year it's grown so much that we got to the point last year where the government of New Brunswick and Sportsman Outdoor Channel, which used to be World Fishing Network, actually asked us to produce a TV show that follows this kayak series in New Brunswick around. So kind of, the unique part about it is it's multi-species. So you're trying to catch as many different species as you can. So it's all catch, photo, release. You don't keep any of the fish. You take a picture of them, put them back exactly where you were. You measure them, and then we have 9 different tournaments that people can come to and try and catch different species. So for instance, last year we did a tournament in Grand Bay Westfield in September, and there was 11 different species caught at that tournament. So it was a really popular spot for our series. Obviously, the more species available, the better. So we had the opportunity this year to work with a production crew, even during COVID. This is a COVID-proof kind of series where everybody just is in their own kayak. They go do their own thing. We wear a mask. I present the awards afterwards. They text me all of their pictures, so they don't have to actually bring fish to me or anything. So it's a very socially distanced kind of sport. But the fact that we're able to promote it this year, we had to pick 3 or 4 locations that we were going to film this summer. So I'm working with the production crew, and we have Quispamsis that's already confirmed that they wanted to have a spot. Oromocto has confirmed they wanted to have a spot, and we're talking to Fredericton, but I'd love to come to Grand Bay Westfield with a camera crew and drones and actually feature some of the things there. So like you were just mentioning, with Megan and Mr. Roma, just featuring the trails, the Nerepis, affordable living. If it's on TV, we're going to reach 600,000 people that subscribe to that channel just in Canada. So it's a really good opportunity to promote anything that you really want, but affordable living being one of them, and moving to New Brunswick being another one. It's kind of a sport tourism thing. So it piggybacks really nicely on that first presentation you had tonight. But yeah, really, if there's any other questions, basically what we're looking for is to secure your location as one of the 30-minute episodes that'll be on TV this year. It's a $7,500 bill. I know that's a crazy amount of money, but when you get into TV and advertising, some of the things that we're doing is we're talking with Jeremy and Outdoors New Brunswick to feature local businesses in the commercials. Like we have say in whatever commercials happen too. So it's not like the network that we're working with demands that we have to do certain things. We can, if we wanted to film somebody in front of the ferries or in front of Outdoor New Brunswick for an interview, then we have opportunities to really showcase the local community and the local businesses. So I think it's a really great opportunity to really promote your town and any features that you really want to promote through TV and a kayak fishing series here in New Brunswick. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Brian, can you just highlight because we do have a reporter here, can you just highlight, please, I think it's 3 spots or something in exchange for that sponsorship. There's so many spots guaranteed to your station, I think.
Yeah, so we have, just pulling it up here. Basically, there'd be, for the TV show you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're doing a 3-part mini-series, but maybe it might be a 4-part mini-series. The TV network is very desperate for Canadian content, and especially in New Brunswick, where anything that's on their TV shows right now in their network is bass fishing, and it's nothing to do with multi-species and nothing to do with Eastern Canada or Atlantic Canada at all. So they really want us to be on TV, so they're really forcing us to, produce something this year. We were going to maybe do it last year, but COVID came. So, we're going to do it this year, but basically you get primetime TV slots on this huge network. So, in October to January, they're going to air your episode between 6 to 10 p.m. at night, and it's 24 different times. So your episode will be on 24 times on TV. But we highlight anything in Grand Bay Westfield. Just trying to read all the details over here, but yeah, there's 600,000 paid subscribers for these channels, so they're guaranteed to see it, and then whoever else we show it to, I guess. But
so thank you, Brian. If you'll take some questions, that would be great. Deputy Mayor Likely, please.
Yes, I just had a question. So, have you been here? Have you been here today?
Yeah, we've been to Grand Bay Westfield.
Yeah. Okay. So you're going to set up at Brundage Point?
Yeah. We always go to Brundage Point.
Yeah. So how many kayakers and how many fishers do you expect to have?
Well, last year we had 40 at the Grand Bay location. So I would expect around the same number this year. But it seems like kayak fishing has really gone up, especially during COVID. So I would expect a few.
So you have a registration process do you have a maximum number that you have to cut off at some point? I'm just thinking of crowd control and parking. It's a fairly small space up there. Plus, you're going to be there at prime time when people are launching their boats that, recreational boaters on the river, trailers and boats coming and going. I'm just curious as to,
You guys are right last year, right?
yeah, so you're involved with our manager at the River Center for all the logistics of how that's all going to fit together?
Yeah, we've done it the past 2 years. We actually launched from the beach, so they open up that gate right beside the ferry, and we
upriver. Yeah, good.
So it's all kayaks there, and we launch at 8:00 in the morning. Usually there was no other boats there yet that we've been in 2 years, and we come off the water at 3:00. Again, typically not too much traffic. Most of our boats go up into the Narrapis. Our kayaks go into the Narrapis, so there's not a lot of traffic on the St. John, and when it is, we're pretty much standing still in a kayak or anchored down. So.
So you're looking for $7,500 from us?
Yeah, that would be the TV cost. I get none of that. Like none of that comes to me or Hook and Paddle.
So it's going to happen regardless whether we pay the $7,500 or not.
We're gonna do a tournament in Grand Bay Westfield on July 10th, no matter what. But the fact that we can film at any 9 of these locations is kind of we're trying to pick the best locations.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Questions? Anybody else?
I think it's great.
Thank you, Councilor Conference.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it sounds fantastic. The $7,500 fee, is that same amount every community would be paying? It's going to be
the only one that I've asked more of is Fredericton, because it would be the finals of the whole series. So we would expect more people at that tournament probably.
Right.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Great.
Anybody else have any questions for Brian? So Brian, it's exciting to consider. So we'll send this back to staff and have a report to come forward. How time sensitive are you?
Well, your tournament is not till July 10th. So, we start our series in May 29th. So before the series starts would be very helpful for sure.
No, we'll have a recommendation back from our staff by the next meeting, actually. So we'll be able to let you know one way or the other.
Yeah, that's lots of time.
Thank you, Brian.
Awesome initiative. Thanks for coming to Grand Bay.
Yes, it really is. Hook and Paddle. Yeah. Exciting twice already.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brian. So can I have a motion, council, please?
Send us that.
To forward to the appropriate staff or report back to council for our next meeting.
So
Second.
Thank you. On the question? Thank you, Brian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Your motion is carried. That moves us to 6-4, please.
Community Climate Adaptation Plan, Dylan, Julie DeCoco.
Hello, Julie. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
All right, I'm just getting ready to present here and I'll share my screen quickly. So thank you so much for having me. So Julie DeSico, I'm an environmental engineer with Dylan. You might remember me from the asset management plan. So my background is in engineering, condition assessments of infrastructure, particularly water and wastewater. And so climate change is what I've been working with for the past 5 years. So this is definitely where I'm more comfortable with. So just start by giving a quick, sorry, lost my place here. Quick outline of what I'll be talking about. So I'll give a bit of a background on the project, go over some climate data, go over the vulnerability assessment methodology and the results. And there was 3 different ways that we assessed the vulnerabilities. So infrastructure assessment, a spatial assessment, and a planning review. And then I'll go through the community engagement, online engagement and the results of those, and the adaptation planning and results. And because I saw the schedule earlier, I only had 10 minutes. I'm only going to provide a brief representation of the adaptations that came out, adaptations and recommendations, but I do have them here if we want to have a discussion. So the overall objective of this project was to understand Grand Bay Westfield's vulnerability to potential climate change impacts through the development of data-driven and community-informed measures. So this project was fully funded by the New Brunswick Environmental Trust Fund. Both adaptations and recommendations were developed. And what I mean by that is adaptations were more of those physical changes to infrastructure that would require capital funding and potentially staff resources, whereas recommendations could be small changes that you can make over time to existing processes and procedures. I also wanted to present this quick graphic about climate change, and there's really 2 ways of looking at it. So you look at the mitigation side, where how do you manage CO2 and greenhouse gas to prevent climate change from happening? And then there's the adaptation side, so managing the unavoidable. So climate change is already happening. What can you do to your existing infrastructure and services and assets to protect from the changes in climate change? So that's what we focused on for the studies, the adaptation side. So it is more infrastructure focused. So the project methodology was divided into 4 parts. First was the background review. We looked at all the documents and prepared a list of all town infrastructure, services, natural assets to be included, and then compiled the climate hazards as well. Then we did the vulnerability assessment. This is where we started the online engagement. We posted an online vulnerability map to get input. We had targeted interviews with staff, so we had to do things a little bit differently. So no open houses because of COVID, so this is how we did it. We did an vulnerability assessment workshop and then a planning review as part of that as well, since the town is going through quite a bit of a planning exercises these past few years. And then the adaptation planning workshop, we hosted the adaptation planning workshop with the key working group, which was Bruce, Troy, John, and David Taylor. Developed adaptation measures and recommendations, and then the final reporting, so the report submission to the ETF and this final presentation. So the climate stressors and thresholds, this might be really hard for you to see on your screen, but essentially all you have to know is that we looked at the vulnerability, the climate variables, high temperatures, low temperatures, heavy rainfall, freeze-thaw cycles, freezing rain, snowfall, and high winds. And you can just look at the arrow to see if they're increasing or decreasing. The baseline value was 1981 to 2010 of measured data, while the long-term projections, we looked at an average from 2069 to 2099. And you might think that's really far in the future, but what this does, and because we've used the most aggressive projection model, we modeled it and wanted to create adaptations based on worst case scenarios so that the infrastructure and services were the most protected. So after doing all of this, we went into the vulnerability assessment. And as I mentioned, there was 3 different ways that we assessed vulnerabilities. The first one being the infrastructure assessment. So these are based on all the climate hazards and thresholds that I just presented, and finding out what are the interactions between those climate parameters and town infrastructure. So for example, freeze-thaw cycles to pipes in the ground, how those interact, what is the severity of those, what is the probability of that climate stressor happening to give us a quantitative risk score. What was missing from the list that you saw earlier in the past slide is there was no flooding, and that was a big vulnerability for the town, obviously. What's interesting about flooding is that it's not only a climate change parameter. There's some other factors that go into how flooding happens. So what we did here was just a spatial assessment, looking at the 1 in 100 year flood maps, the updated maps, and looked at the infrastructure and town services spatially on a map. As for the planning review, we did a qualitative desktop research looking at the impacts of future development and general population. So what we looked at for these are just flooding, high heat, and drought. So going into each of these assessments a little bit more detailed, the infrastructure assessment, as I mentioned, it was a quantitative assessment. We assigned probability scores on the climate hazards. So those are just independent of what the interaction and what the vulnerability actually is. Just how often is that climate parameter happening over the years. And assigned a severity score based on the consequence of that. So given that there is an interaction between freeze-thaw cycles and pipes in the ground, what is the interaction, cost to the town, environmental factors, societal factors, all of that. Assigning each probability and severity scores a scale of 1 to 7. And that gave us a quantitative risk score. And so the results of the infrastructure assessment look like this big grid. So all of the infrastructure components and assets on the left-hand side, climate parameters up on the top, and you can see where all the interactions are. So a number of low risks, moderate risk, and one high risk was produced just based on the infrastructure assessment. As for the spatial assessment, we took the 1 in 100-year flood maps, the updated ones, and looked spatially in terms of if the asset was inside the flood zone, giving it a higher risk, close to moderate risk, and outside. And something to note that's important here is that these were the 1 in 100. So they're not assets that have already been impacted by the 2018 and 2019. This is like the new 1 in 100-year flood map based on what had happened in 2018, 2019. So this high risk is still something that might not be impacted year over year, but it's high because it's in the projected area. So some of the results that came up for the spatial assessment was just another table here, and this was, I think, in Appendix C of the report. And this is just showing the transportation assets, but you'll see that we dug into a little bit more of which specific areas are impacted, if it's part of the road, if it's most of the road, if it's only the road and not the houses. And we have another column that has the rationale, but essentially they came out with 11 high risks and 28 moderate risks associated with flooding. As for the planning review, as I mentioned, it was a desktop research, more of a qualitative analysis of what flooding, high heat, and drought could have on future land use. So flooding and the impacts of land use, impacts on the vulnerable population. Same thing with high heat. It was mostly about the impacts to the older and vulnerable populations. And drought, more so related to town growth and intensification areas. So in areas that you want to grow and there might not be a reliable water source, drought could definitely impact that. That was one of our findings. And again, so for the results for the planning review, as for the flooding impacts, we did go a little bit more into depth in terms of vacant land. So 61 vacant plots were identified as being impacted by flooding with a total assessed value as of 2019 of $804,000. In terms of high heat impacts, the aging population and obviously vulnerable populations are at heightened risk of heat-related illnesses. As for the drought impacts, as I mentioned, increasing load on the groundwater table. So this impacts both private wells as well as potential future centralized small water supply if the town is interested in that. So going into the online community engagement, we launched the social pinpoint page on October 5th. This was after we did the targeted interviews with the 4 key stakeholder group. We pre-populated the map with 15 known vulnerabilities from that and from our internal kind of interaction assessment to kind of get the conversation going. Only one additional comment was received, but there were a lot of views on the existing 15 vulnerabilities from the map. Most of the identified vulnerabilities were related to flooding and heavy rainfall or poor drainage. So this was the first online engagement activity. For the second one, we did a survey that presented those community-facing adaptations. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the adaptation measures and recommendations were more so related to infrastructure, since that's what we're trying to protect here, is how to preserve the infrastructure, preserve existing assets from the impacts of climate change. So we asked some general questions and just a very high-level overview here. We gave choices for what should be a priority in terms of the vulnerabilities. River flooding was by far the highest, since that is what people are mostly affected by. Heavy rainfall got a few votes, high temperatures and drought conditions, as well as snow and freezing rain events. And as for the adaptation planning results, as I mentioned, I'm only presenting this, but I do have some hidden slides if we do want to go into specific, the 11 adaptation measures that again are upgrades to infrastructure components, work that requires funding or staff capacity and resources, and 6 recommendations, more so reviews and modifications to processes and systems that are currently in place to help adapt to some of those impacts. And the adaptations and recommendations that resulted, the climate hazards that resulted in the most adaptations and recommendations were heavy rainfall, flooding, and high temperatures, since they're both found to be increasing over time. So that's all I have today. There is, and I think maybe John, you might have mentioned this, we do need a motion to kind of approve this, but if there are any changes and we require any modifications to the adaptations or more clarification, we can definitely do that, because I do believe that the ETF is being flexible with this deadline for this year due to COVID.
Thank you, Julie. There was a lot of information in here. And honestly, I think I've been so conditioned to respond to water flooding and river flooding that I hadn't even really considered drought and the impact of that and forest fires and all of the many things that you highlighted in this report. So it was a good report.
Thank you.
Council, what Julie is mentioning is that we have to have a motion to receive and file as well as forward to the province, because they have to get the environmental trust fund money. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Buckley. On the question, so does anybody have any questions for Julie with respect to the content? Certainly, all of the recommendations in here will be moved to the zoning bylaw, and they'll be contemplated within that, which will have public hearings and so that the community has a full opportunity to participate. Does anybody have any questions for Julie tonight?
No.
Nobody? Julie, I'd like to thank you very much. Council has had, I'm sure everybody was there. It was really an interesting document. I was shocked at some of the content, I must admit. So thank you very much for all the work that you put into it. And it's nice to put a face to Julie DeCinco.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Don't hesitate to reach out if you do have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
So
you.
I need to call the question. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Thank you, Council. So then your item is 7.1, please.
Minutes of regular council meeting of February 22nd, 21.
Motion adopted is presented.
On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Item 7.2, please.
Minutes of River Valley Community Center meeting of January 19, 2021.
Make a motion to receive, file.
Seconded.
On the question, just to point out, John, maybe do you want to speak to, I know their recreation committee's got something planned up there. So do you have the information for that?
Yeah, one motor club.
I'm sorry?
One drone will make you room downstairs. So,
They're going to be offering programming
Yeah.
through River Valley Community Center, the Boys and Girls Club. They finished the room 5, I think it is, which was formerly the junior hockey.
River Valley Rock.
River Valley Rock, that was it. It was formerly that, and they've done, I've actually been in, they've done a really nice job, so they'll be offering some programs. Yes, I know that they are, the next meeting, I think. Yeah. Anything else?
So just on that, so we were going to have the Y look at whether they come up with new programs.
Well, they're coming to do a whole presentation to us, the River Valley Community Center, how they ended up with the St. John Boys and Girls
Okay.
Club and all of that. I think it's scheduled for our next meeting.
I haven't received the request for,
They had, I think they had their meeting, didn't you guys just have a meeting last Tuesday? Yes, so, it'll be here for our next meeting, would be my guess.
Good.
So thank you. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Item 3, please.
Minutes of Subcommittee Committee meeting of February 4th, 2021.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
On the question, Bev, I must say, I was amazed at how many people participated in a couple of those online programs. The estate, for estate and wills, and that was amazing to me. Over 100 participants on 2 of those
And the
online
book
programs.
club, I'm getting to the point now with the numbers we
Yes, you
have.
had 10 people on the book club.
We don't have any more spaces.
Isn't that something?
And it's been great. I've read 3 books so far, and it's just been great. There's a new site called Books with the number 4, u.org. And you can go there and you can download 5 books every day and you don't pay anything. And that's awesome. They even have quilting books that I've never seen before.
Well, that's good for you, but I just want to say, I was very impressed with the
Yes.
content of what's going on there, and it really just does go to show how important the seniors are to this recreation master plan,
Yeah,
as well as how eager and hungry they are for something to do, frankly.
well, it's more the fact they actually see another face.
Yeah,
And if you've been locked up in the house all dinner, seeing somebody other than your significant other is rather a treat.
yes, there you go. Are you speaking from experience?
Now, they just had some housing stock, those seniors would be able to stay there, maybe even go further.
That's right.
There you go.
So have we had a motion to receive and file on the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried, and item is 7-4, please.
Tender notes of March 16, 2021, read pavement markings.
Motion received and filed.
Second.
And to point out that we had 2 people who responded to the tender for pavement markings. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried, your item is 8, please.
Bill for payment.
I'd like to make a motion that we pay the bills for $531,065.16.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. And your item is 8, please.
Grant Bay Westfield Volunteer Fire and Rescue Department report, Building Inspector's report, Dog Control report, Recreation Department report, Works Department report, Dillon Consulting's tracking sheet capital project, River Center Coordinator's report, and Seniors Resource Center report for February 2021.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file.
Seconded.
On the question,
One of the things Annie's done is she's made templates for Facebook. So when we send out notifications, it's like the fire department, we have the same logo, the whole 9 yards. And we've been working on that all along. And if I send something out, and you guys want to share it, please do. Because the more people find out about what we're doing, Ray Rydell did an incredible program on what would happen if you're the executor to someone's estate.
that's right. That was the one that had all the
And
attendance.
that was, how I put it, I had my husband listen to it because now he understands what you have to go through.
Yes,
And it's not just a snap decision. And there's a couple of other ones we've had, and it's been really well attended.
Good stuff.
What we don't know, though, is because they are recorded, people can go in and watch them later on, but we have no way of tracking that.
Oh, to see how your numbers have grown beyond what the initial total. Yeah. I can't help you with that. I'm the girl who wants to know what it's worth.
You will need both.
Thank you, but look, I do want to point out, if you look at, we've got building permits out for 2 new homes already this year. That's good news for us, valued at over $500,000 for the 2 of them, so that's good growth to kick off the year 2021, good news. And all the hundreds of hours I point out every month that we are benefit of from a volunteer fire department. It's amazing. Councilor Evans, did you have something?
I'm just excited for some more other houses that go up, and some land up originally that sold access to that.
Yes, and this was just till February, so,
Andrew, that property that sold.
well, you're dealing with it tonight, huh? Kill, I think. That's, yeah. So on the question, if you're consent agenda to receive and file, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, your motion is carried. Item 10, please.
Business arising from the regular council meeting minutes of February the 22nd, 2021.
Is there any? Being none, we'll move to 10-1. Oh, why that's in there, regular council meeting minutes.
That's what it is.
Oh, that is it, okay. There being none, we'll move to item 11.
Delegations,
There are
none.
none. Item 12,
Petitions, none.
item 13,
Bylaws, none.
item 14.
Notice of motions.
Again, are there any? There being none, we're gonna move to item 15, particularly 15-1.
Outdoors New Brunswick.
Make a motion that, we lease the beach area north of Berry Road for a monthly rate not exceeding $200.
Seconded.
On the question,
I think this is really good news. We've been wanting kayaks at the Greenwich Point ever since we,
well, we did have some originally, but we
Yes.
don't want to,
no, but,
yeah, we had someone who really put a big effort into that.
yeah, and it's just nice to see an opportunity coming to one of our citizens. And
That's the important piece, I think. Not only have we got a presence there, he's from our community.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful.
Right, so we live along the river, and really, 10% of our economic activity should be based on that. So finally, we have someone, outdoors, I mean, it's great, they have good reputation, and kayak can take off, it's fishermen, and we got that beautiful tool, right, got a problem, that's just way more.
I can't believe they get 11 species out of that American strip.
Well, and also with this fellow, I mean, what excites me is him looking to the future of what else he could do out of that. stuff.
Yes, Mr. Klein,
You know,
that's right.
whether it be, paddle boats or, whatever it is.
Absolutely,
He's
whatever.
not just limited to starting up with a few kayaks and canoes. He's looking way beyond that, which is,
Yeah, we're underutilized around there.
yeah.
Councilor Snodgrass, did you say?
Yeah, I was just gonna, it is exciting, I'm happy to see it, it's gonna happen. Couple of comments, so in the motion, we need to note the name of the company we're listening to, or no?
It's in the agreement.
Okay. Okay, and then, so the only other question or comment I was gonna make is like, there is no, you noted it here, but having a temporary storage shelter to protect his assets, completely understandable. So just ask the staff, work with the individual, make sure it's placed, painted, looks appropriate for the location, so it's.
So, yeah, I thought I included the lease in your package.
Yeah.
And it says in there that it has to be kept up to a certain standard.
Perfect, thank you.
So on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. And item 15-2, please.
Request for refinancing.
You have a motion there for your consideration, council.
Resolved that the clerk and/or treasurer and/or mayor be authorized to issue and sell to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation on municipality of Grand Bay Westfield debenture in the principal amount of $79,000 on such terms and conditions as are recommended by the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. And be it resolved that the municipality of Grand Bay Westfield agree to issue post-dated checks payable to the New Brunswick Finance Corporation as and when they are requested in payment of principal and interest charges on the above debenture.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Evans. On the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Item 15-3, please.
That was removed.
Oh, yes, sorry, 15-4.
Pavement markings.
The
Make a
motion
motion that
for
the council of the town of Grand Bay Westfield award the 2021 pavement marking contract to Four Seasons Sport Limited for the tendered price of $42,025.60 plus HST.
Second.
on the question. It's a slightly over budget, but not a lot, and at least we had two bidders for pavement markings that are not a dime a dozen in this province, so we're grateful to have two. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Your item is 15-5, please.
Snow control contract extension.
I make a motion that the town of Grand Bay Westfield extend the snow removal contract with ABL Construction Group Incorporated, signed in 2016 for 2 years with an increase of 4.5%.
Second.
On the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. It should be noted that ABL they've had the contract with us for the last 5 years, and they had it previous to that as well. So we're very familiar with their service and their service level, so it makes it easy to extend their contract at a request of 2 years while we get a better understanding of where we need to go in the future. So, did I already call the question? Somebody remind me. I don't think I did. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. 15-6, Stephen, to your point.
Oak Hill Homes, Inc., subdivision lot 2021-1.
There's a motion there, council.
The Council of Town of Grand Bay Westfield provide tentative approval to Oak Hill Homes Incorporated subdivision lot 2021-1 as prepared by Kirsty Quigley and Roberts, dated February 24th, 2021. Subject to completion to final subdivision plan with recording of civic number 100 for lot 2021-1 on the final subdivision plan, and 2, recording of a 15-meter radius municipal easement for temporary turnaround at the end of the developed portion of Emma Drive Avenue.
Second.
On the question, Deb, I may not have heard you. Did you talk about the money in lieu of land for public purposes? $627.76.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Security in the amount of $1,627.76 has been paid in lieu for land for public purposes.
Thank you, Deb. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. That must have been the one you were talking about, Councillor Evans, was that?
Yeah.
Oh, it was. That's 4.32 hectares. That
It's only one
piece of
house.
property.
It's the other one beside it, Oak Hill.
Oh,
I
Murray.
didn't think I'd come just to look for, to get access into
Let's
into
hope.
that property.
Yeah. We were talking about that today, yeah.
So through Oak Hill, they bought a lot.
Yes. Your item is 15-7, please.
Request for financing.
That the Council of the Town of Grand Bay Westfield authorize the mayor and CAO issue and sell to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation a municipality of Grand Bay Westfield debenture in the principal amount of $135,000 on such terms as conditions as are recommended by the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. And be it resolved that the municipality of Grand Bay Westfield agree to issue post-dated checks payable to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation as and when they are requested in payment of principal and interest charges on the above debenture.
We have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. And all of this is, both this and the previous one were both for water and sewer projects.
Thank you. Thanks for clearing up those.
Yeah. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. And your item is 16, please.
Letter of February the 15th, 2021 from Canadian Heritage. David Burton, Accelerate Canada funding application.
We can make a motion to receive and file.
Seconded.
On the question, we have become the recipient of $2,000 from the Minister of Canadian Heritage for Canada Day celebrations. I can remember when that was 3,500. And it was 5 before that. So we're down to 2.
So, in light of, obviously, last year, I think we received the same fund or similar.
Yeah.
We weren't able, we were able. to
We
do
did
something.
some photo contests. We tried to get the community to decorate itself. We took pictures of different, we awarded prizes based on, and I think that was it.
We sent that on that.
On that whole thing. So there you go. Thank you, Marcia. It's good to have the finance girl at the table.
Thank you.
On the question, all those in favor? Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. And your item 17, please.
Letter of March 2nd, 2021 from MP John Williamson, introduction of 3-digit suicide prevention hotline.
So the motion,
Could be a motion to receive and file or read.
yes, to receive and file, and this is a really good initiative, especially with the issues around suicide and suicide prevention. and I hope that they deliver.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Evans. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, your motion is carried. Your items 18, please.
Letter of March 8th, 2021, from Joe Green, Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, redesignated highway program partnership.
Make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
And acknowledge that we have received $12,000 this year for designated highway funding. It's a very small amount compared to last year, for example, but it's going to fix. I think everybody had a picture of the culvert that it's going to fix. John said that is.
Well, I would send the $12,000 back to the province and say it's an insult, and thank you very much for your assistance, but you've let us down the game. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, compared to the amount we asked for, Deputy Mayor Likely, but I would say this, the town of Grand Bay Westfield has been recipient in my 29 years, well, looks, since I've been mayor, every year, except for 2, every year, there's not enough
It's their asset.
I could say that.
It's important to know it's their asset that they need to take care of.
That's right.
And it's one thing to put $750,000 in one for a ferry, but I can tell you the people out there watching on the TV that are on there and running on Facebook and on social media, River Valley Drive, it's like our fault all the time, and these guys give us 15 grand a year.
Someone 12.
Well, I was thinking HST.
Well, yeah, well,
So, I mean, I agree that, we've been, we get it, that we should get it.
yes, we should.
I mean, there's
But
no.
they can't give it to you until they put more money in that fund. I mean, they reduced that fund to $9 million. I think they increased it slightly. But I mean, if you have over 100 municipalities that all have the same, they have to put more money in that fund to do the kind of work that is required on this road.
Well, the reason they don't have to, historically, is because the community misunderstands who's responsible for
Who
the
owns it?
They blame the municipality and the folks on mayor and candidates that are running. When the reality is, it's provincial government that once again is able to step up and play the infrastructure. Anyway.
So, on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried and your item is 19.
Letter of March 1st, 2021, from Doug Hartford, P Engineer Dental Consulting Limited, Restore Sewer and Street Improvements 2020, project number 20-2094, fullback release certificate number 4.
So we would be looking for a motion to release the holdback in the amount of $111,919.33. And it's a holdback release to Peel Construction.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bailmans, thank you. On the question, that again was for, work on storm sewer and street improvements. Yeah, from last year, of course, we're not doing it this year yet. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, your motion is carried. Item 20.
Letter of March 16th, 2021, from Alex Cunningham, Westfield Golf and Country Club, we request for CAO to accept requests for membership and ex officio member of board of directors.
I make a motion to support this.
Second.
On the question, Deputy Mayor, perhaps while we have an audience, you want to speak to this a bit?
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative here that we can work closer with the golf course and take our assets both from the town and from the course and work together. I think having John as a member of the board is going to keep us up to date with everything they're doing, and vice versa. When John's on their board, he can tell them about some of the stuff that we've got initiatives on. I mean, one example that jumps out is, with recreation, which is, we've got a lot of effort going on right now, both organizations are, lobbying the government for students and funding for students. And, united we stand, divided we fall. Like maybe if we get together and go in with a combined initiative of the whole community, that might have more legs to it, just as an example. So I think it's great. I don't know if this is where we should discuss it or not, but if we're asking our CAO to do this, then is there some reimbursement for, he has to be a member to be on the board. So there's a real deal for him this year because he's never been a member. So it's $800 this year to join. Typically it's around $1,400. So do we give a tax donation for our CAO to be a member? Do we partially pay? I don't know. Do we do it, say that's part of the job? You've got to have your own membership, buy it, and go to the meetings.
We receive a follow-up movement or you promotion movement because they don't for bylaws of the golf course have a ex officio member of the board.
I didn't understand, Steve.
Like they've asked them to be a member of the board.
Yes.
I don't think that requires them to be a member of the golf course.
The letter clearly states they want to be a member.
Well, you want to, sure, yeah.
And I would think that it would be without fee. I mean, they're looking to have our employees sit at the board because we think they can benefit from each
So
other.
that may be an extended conversation, that wasn't the conversation when the general manager, the last conversation I had was that he would have to be a member of the board to be on the board. So this category,
A member of the club to be on the
a
board.
member of the club to be on the board. So if this is additional, I mean, I haven't had any correspondence since I got you guys up together. So if this is something, an ex officiato, if that means you don't have to be a member, I didn't understand. That's new to me.
Well, they can be a member maybe, but they don't, what they charge is the golf course's choice. They have power over that.
Absolutely. They're looking for us to lend our employee so we can create this sort of cross-reference partnership between the two of us. And so I would think that if they wanted John to become a regular member of their board, they would do that regardless for the.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I don't think that's the case. And I think we should clarify this because my first conversations with the general manager and the president were that it's going to be difficult for us to change the bylaws of the club. And whoever's on the board has to be a member. And they at the time volunteered that perhaps we could help you out with some of the cost of that and share the cost. But at the end of the day, the conversation I had was whoever we nominated from the town to be on that board had to be a member.
I had some questions when I first read the letter, because to me it wasn't super clear on exactly how the role is. Secondly, I think before we vote on doing something like that, we should talk to the CAO to see if he actually has an interest in doing it, because
He does.
it's not our hours, right?
So, yeah, so I met with the general manager after I talked with the deputy mayor, I think both of us. And I expressed some reservations. I also asked some of my colleagues about, doing something like this. And it can go well and it can go not so well.
That's right.
And so I'm concerned. And then in my meeting with the general manager, I did speak to him about the fact that I do not want to be caught in a position where there's a conflict of interest.
Sorry.
As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter what I do in town or volunteer. My first obligation is to the town through my contract. I am the town's chief representative. So I may volunteer and I don't mind flipping burgers, but at the end of the day, I will not be advocating for the golf course. I made it very clear that I do not want to be placed in a conflict of interest for anything. And that's where they came up with ex officio where I wouldn't be voting. But I understand that they want my input in other areas. Perhaps I have other things to offer to the board.
Yes.
And that's reasonable. So yeah, I don't mind doing that. I think it's a good opportunity to meet people. COVID-19 put a big break on my integration into the community. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does.
Councillor Evans, you wanted to add something, I think.
No, I guess we need some questions that be answered before we, I'm ready to make a vote in favor of. Is there a cost to it?
Yeah, I don't, it wasn't my sense. I guess maybe we do need some clarification. So maybe we should table this until the next
Well,
meeting.
that's not good, because
Let's table it. There'll be no discussion about it. Let's table it for the next meeting to get some clarification with respect to what is expected of him sitting.
How do we do that? It's
I
already
just refer
motion
to
to table.
town staff for clarification.
So I'll second it.
That'll do that. Thank you. On the question. I want to say on the question that I'm open to certainly supporting this because I think in our case, and I don't know much about anybody else's case, but this golf course has many more opportunities than just golf
Yes.
for a community.
Right.
And that, to me, it has value to us as a community.
And you're right, and you works my agree with that, I agree, we got Jewel up there with all kinds of extra.
Absolutely.
And a willing partner wanting to do stuff for
That's
the
right.
community, but the struggle with the golf course always been, their core business is tough, it's golf, they don't have any extra money to run anything in the winter, but you see, we need a place to skate.
Yeah.
Cross-country skiing, and it's just a jewel up there, and I think if we combine.
Okay, but Kendall's talking about things like outdoor biking, the big wheel biking, and all those sorts of things that are very attractive to a community that has so much nature.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when we do programming, our method, how we deliver recreation in the past has been that we get outside partners to provide, and we help pay for space and stuff, so I think that's, we get those facilities up there, we can help support them, which supports our community and supports the golf course longevity and well-being that that's.
Well, certainly they're a big part of the recreation master plan, I know that. So, a lot of those recommendations will come forward throughout that process, but for tonight, we'll, take a vote on clarification only and, deal with this at the next meeting. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, the motion is carried. Michael, is Alex Cunningham Terry's son?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there we go. Item 21.
Letter of March 2nd, 2021, to Mike Holland, Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development, interest in municipal partnership and ending nature legacy initiative.
Motion to.
So this was sent to me, yes,
Receive.
yeah, I think, because it asked for municipal properties. Yes, John?
No, I was just gonna speak to it after you talk to.
Yeah, so the request was for municipal properties, if there were any we wanted to contribute to the NB Nature Trust, as we did provide access, frankly, to Blueberry Hill here. So I sent it to John to determine whether or not we had any municipal properties that were open for that. It's not my sense that we do, but anyway, John.
The town already has land set aside for the province's nature reserve up north of where I live. And then, in talking with David and Gary, I think that we should really defer decision on this until we complete the Parks and Rec master plan and send the council the numbers. We also have about 62 different lots of property that really are not being utilized right now. So let's see where our Parks and Rec master plan wants to take us. And we'll see what land may be relevant at that time and what land we want to see if we can sell and land that we want to develop as well.
Okay?
Yeah.
So on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Thank you, council. It's been a long evening, but before we go, I just want to point this out to everybody. This is a thank you card from our retiring 30-year employee, Linda Thompson, with a lovely note in it. I'll leave it here for any of you who may want to read it.
Thank you.
And I also want to acknowledge that Marcia Mason here, this will be her last evening as our recording secretary.
I'm not retiring.
She won't be filling this role anymore after tonight, so thank you, Marcia, for your service to the community. On the question, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, second. Thank you, on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, we are adjourned at 9 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.